Good afternoon, everyone. It's okay too. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome for the training for today. Karibuni sana. I can see we have enough quorum, and I just want us to begin immediately. I'll request my sister Sylvia to lead us in an opening prayer, after which we'll proceed from that point. Karibu sana, Sylvia.
Good afternoon, all. May we bow our heads for a word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father and our God, we come before your throne this afternoon with thanksgiving in our heart for the gift of life and for the gift of the day. We pray as now we are about to start this training, we place it into your hands. Whatever we're going to learn, oh dear Father, we pray that you shall be with us. Our speakers for the day, we place them into your hands too. May you give them wisdom to continue leading us in the way that you want to, dear Father, even for the association that has given these thoughts of building our teachers. We pray for them that you may also continue blessing them. We surrender the rest of the day unto your hands. All that we shall do, oh dear Father, those will be traveling home, we ask for your journey mercies. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ that we do pray and believe. Amen.
Thank you so much, Sister Sylvia, for the prayers. I want us to go to the business of the day. My name is George Okumu. I'll be moderating the session for today. This being our day 3 of prayer, not of prayers, but of training. This is a national virtual science teachers training organized by Kenya Private Schools Association. We've had similar trainings since Monday. On Monday, we had training for mathematics teachers. Then on Tuesday, we had training for teachers of English. And then today we have for science. The trainings will continue up to next week on Wednesday. Of course, we'll update you on the subsequent ones that will come after today. So feel welcome. I can see we have teachers from across the country. You can see teachers from Uasin Gishu County. Feel welcome to the meeting. Kisumu, I can see teachers from Kisumu County. Karibuni sana watu wa Kisumu. I can see there are those from Kiambu. Karibuni sana watu wa Kiambu. I can see watu wa Mombasa wako. Karibuni sana Mombasa County. Kilifi, karibuni. I can see teachers from Trans Nzoia. Feel welcome. Kajiado, Kakamega, Garissa, Embu. I can see teacher Boaz Winga. Boaz, karibu sana. Migori County, kuna wale wa Narok. Naona Blessed School Busia. Karibuni sana wa Busia. Kuna Madama Catherine Mwema wa Machakos. Karibuni sana. Teachers from Machakos County. I can see kuna Charles Mwaura from Kirinyaga. Karibuni sana watu wa Kirinyaga. Jana mulitupatia a lot of goodies. Thank you so much. I can see kuna watu wa Kericho. Nandi, welcome for this training. and all the others that I've not mentioned, feel welcome. Now, I want to go straight to the reason why we have this training of today. This is a Kpsa organized, that is Kenya Private School Association, organized training for all science teachers across the country. Now, Kenya Private Schools Association is the representative body of all private schools across the country. Ordinarily, every term, we normally organize for examinations, 2 exams, midterm and end-term examinations. Now, all the years in the past, we've just been organizing for schools booking exams with us. Then we print for them, we package for them, and then we supply them. And of course, that is the normal trend, even with other exam vendors across the country. But we, in the name of trying to add value onto what we do, we decided that in addition to just the normal supply of exams to schools, we decided that we take time to analyze the results. Once the exams have been done, then we organize for such a kind of a training. And of course, in the course of the training, we will be highlighting the areas that were not well performed, so that the teachers can take a keen interest and then have a relook at such kind of topics that were not well covered or well done, performed by students, with the view that in the subsequent exams, the students should be at a position to improve their performance during that time. So it is for this reason that, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today so that we can put our heads together as colleagues. We look at why are our students not performing well in science subjects. We all know that sciences are very key, especially at this particular level, because this is the level that we lay the foundation of the so-called science-based subjects. And science being very instrumental in a career path, that is, when a student will be advancing him or herself from primary school to secondary school and then even to further levels, higher levels, we all know that science subjects are very key and very instrumental in defining somebody's career. So it is for this reason that we felt that we should come together as Kpsa, take our teachers through some of the challenges that we see their students or mistakes that students do. Another reason why we have this kind of a training is that when you discovered that students are not performing well in a particular topic, maybe the topic was not well covered, because there are some topics that are normally interrelated. A topic may be introduced at class 4, then as the student advances to class 5 to class 6, if they had missed the foundational concepts at the lower level when the topic was being introduced, then chances are that at the higher levels of class 6, 7, and 8, the student will just be floating or will not really have grasped the basic concepts required in that particular, or rather in science. So if you realize that your students are not performing well in a particular topic, which would have been introduced, maybe was introduced earlier on in, say, class 4 or class 5, then you still have time to go back. Instead of continuing with the advanced levels of that topic, you can go back and reintroduce the topic again, so that going forward, you are better placed to advise and maybe to guide your students well, so that they can perform better than they've been performing. Now, Kpsa examinations, if I give a brief of this, I'd said that at Kenya Private School Association, we normally give or supply 2 examinations per term. That is midterm exams and end-term exams. Like now we are in term 2, we have midterm exams which are scheduled to take place between 2nd to 5th of November, and bookings are ongoing. We're already taking orders for schools that are interested. Then Once the exams have been administered, we now take the step of analyzing the results, rather than just sending you papers and then leaving it at that level. These days, we take the task of analyzing the results. Now, it is on the analyzed results that is forming the basis of the training of today. And if I take you through just the past, the just finished exam, that was exam for end term 1 examinations, you'll allow me to share what I have here with you. So we, as I look for the folder, we do the analysis of the results. After we've supplied the exams to schools, we expect the schools to do the invigilation themselves. Then they also do the marking themselves. Then after the schools have done the invigilation and the marking, we encourage the schools to analyze and send back to us the mean marks per class and for the school. So we consolidate from our end all the results that we've received from the schools that have sent back their results to us for analysis. Then we analyze them together and compile them together. In our analysis, we don't always include the school name. The reason being, our analysis is not meant for ranking the schools per se, but our main objective in this is just to enable teachers to compare how their students are performing when compared to students of other schools. So basically, that is what we do. We don't rank them for the sake of knowing which school is performing better than which other. In fact, during our analysis, we don't even indicate the school name. I'm trying to look for the folder so that I display it, but all in all, I can explain. So in our analyzed sheet, it only has the details for the language, how English was performed, Kiswahili was performed, mathematics, social studies, science, and then the overall mean score for the school. But it doesn't indicate the school name. So it is not possible for a school, for example, in the just concluded results that we are talking about, the topmost school in class 6 had a mean score of 380.16. Teachers from that school are the only people that can identify their school based on the mean, the overall mean, and then the mean per subject based on what they sent to us. But it's not possible for a teacher from a different school to know that school number 1 is which school, because they may not know what their mean was in English, in science, in mathematics, in social studies, and even their overall mean. So in this sheet, which of course we'll share through our WhatsApp walls, you will only identify your school, but you cannot know the performances of other schools. So we are encouraging schools, don't shy away from sending us your results, because it is through this that you may think that your students are performing so well in your school, but maybe relatively when you compare them with others from other regions, you may discover that maybe other schools are performing much better. So this will give you some homework to do if you discover that you are not in the national limelight. So you still have time to reorganize yourself, go back to the drawing board, and then enhance your performance as we get along. So basically, we at Kpsa, after analyzing these results, we are saying that we also go a step ahead to identify which are the areas that stress stepper performed so well. And out of the areas of weaknesses, that is what informs the training that we are going to have today, because the facilitator is going to take us through which were the topics that were not well covered or well done, and then how can you approach them as a teacher. We all know that we are gifted differently. Not all of us have got the same potential when it comes to subject delivery. You may have the mastery of the content in your mind, but delivery is another issue. Some people know well how to deliver, but in terms of mastery of the concepts or the content, they are a little bit poor. So that is why we gather together as teachers of science, so that as we learn from one another, we can know even how best we can approach a particular topic. But the main goal or the main objective of doing this is to improve performances of our pupils in private schools. It is for this reason that Kpsa will be organizing for such forums. After every exam is done, we request schools to send us the analyzed results. We compile the analyzed results. We identify the gaps. We identify the weaknesses. We identify the areas that were not the topics that are poorly done. We organize for a training. We again converge as teachers of science. Then we brainstorm. We look at several approaches of how best certain topics can be taught. Because you will agree with me that there are some topics that are always very hard to introduce and even to teach. But as we are here, as we will be sharing what the training, the issues of the training of today, we will realize that others adopt a different approach from the approach maybe that we are used to over the years. Now, in the session of today, allow me say that we have two facilitators that will take us through the session of today. And as I told you, or as you had been informed, the training is taking place between 3 all through to 6 p.m. So it's going to be a slightly lengthy program, but at the end of it all, you'll agree with me that it is worth the time. Now, the first trainer that will take us through is called Mr. David Waweru Kamoshe. This is a teacher, a very experienced teacher of science. He has authored books. If you are aware of the KCP mirror of science and touch encyclopedia, he has participated together with other authors to author the KCP mirror science and also touch encyclopedia. He is also a director of a school, a private school called Sunny Hills School. So he's been in the teaching experience for almost over 25 years. So he's a teacher that has got a wealth of experience in his teaching career. And it is for this reason that Kpsa picked on him to take teachers through, because he has a good record of success. He's been teaching for so many years at New Light schools. All of us, those that know the performances of New Light schools, is always in top 5 nationally, national rankings all the years. And in his column of sciences, students have been scoring very highly, and the least mean he has ever achieved during his teaching career is a mean of around 75% in sciences. So you can imagine that is the kind of wealth of experience that we are bringing to you teachers. So the other facilitator that will also join us later on in the course of the training is Mr. Polika Pateto, who is also a teacher. He is also a teacher who has a wealth of experience, a national examiner. He marks for neck, and he also has interacted a lot with the issues of examinations, and he is one of the directors in Examinations Hub, a body that does a lot of examination for several other exam bodies. So Mr. Tito Ateto has a bachelor's degree in sciences, and is also pursuing his master's in the same, but at the same time is a classroom teacher. So we are going to get trained by teachers who have got first-hand experience, those that are hands-on, not just teachers that have been, not just facilitators that have been picked from anywhere. So at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, allow me welcome Mr. David Kamoshe to take us through the first session. Now, as he is going to take us through, you've joined this training via a Zoom webinar. Zoom webinar does not allow you directly to talk. But of course, with permission, after the presenters are through, there's the icon. If you look at the lower end of your device that you're using, there's the icon for raising hands. At the point of question and answer session, that is the point that if you have something that you want to maybe to verbally ask, you will click the icon of raising hands. Then we will permit you from this end to directly ask your question. But in the meantime, there is the chat column. In the chat column, which is also accessible to you, in the course of presentation, because we are human beings and maybe the presentation may take quite long, if you feel you may forget something, you can just ask the question at that point, because there's somebody that is picking all the questions that are being, or any concerns, suggestions that are being raised in the course of the training, so that before the training is over, the facilitator will take time to go through each and every question that will have been asked through the chat column. So don't shy away from by chatting or airing anything, any concern, be it a question, be it a suggestion, be it a proposal, kindly just share via the chat column. But at the time when the two facilitators will have taken us through, as I've said, there's the icon for raising hands. You'll raise up your hands, then we will allow you from this end so that you can verbally ask your questions. Otherwise, right now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome the first presenter, Mr. David Kamoshe, to take us through his presentation. Thank you so much. Well, David.
Ladies and gentlemen, teachers, I take this time also to invite you to this training. It has taken a lot of effort from Kenya Private School Association to come up with this training. And I can say for sure, this is great support to us as teachers, because first and foremost, they supply very quality exams. Number two, they also take interest to make follow-up and find out how the exam was performed. So I want to say that their input is of great value as far as our teaching is concerned. Now, having gone through most of all the papers, and through the analysis and the feedback we have got from teachers, I can say that there are some of the areas that we find need to be tackled. And this one here mainly does not necessarily mean that the topics are very difficult, no. But it is always important to make sure that as you teach, you refer to your syllabus. Let the syllabus be your guide. Let you be guided by the requirements of the syllabus, because that is where the exam comes from. Now, we have science for Study 6. We have science for Study 6 paper. And after going through the analysis, we have identified some questions that we need to look at. Well, there are some questions we need to look at. Basically, we know this is first term, so we have not moved much as far as syllabus is concerned in that level. But the exam covered other classes, previous classes, such as Study 4, 5, and part of Study 6 work. So, having gone through the paper, we have identified the following areas. One of the questions that was mostly failed was question number 6. Question number 6 was a question on properties of matter. And this one here, it is basically a common question in exam, including KCPE. So at this point, the learners are expected to understand exactly what matter is, the properties or the characteristics of matter, So this question was based on one part of our one state of matter, which is air. We know very clearly that air is one state of matter. We also have liquids, and we also have solids. So to investigate the properties of matter, we need to carry out some experiments. One of them is air occupies space. If basically look at that question, the glass is inverted over a basin of water. Inside the glass, there is no water. The reason as to why the water does not get inside the glass is because there is another state of matter, which is air. And there's no way the water could get inside that glass. So, if you are to teach that concept of air occupies space, remember, air is not something you can see. So the water will not enter the glass because already there is air. Thank you. Already there is air inside that glass. So if you look at that particular question, for example, there are some very good instructors in that question. Remember, as you make or as you teach, it is always important to look at the observation, also look at the conclusion. And the question demands the conclusion, not what they saw. Not what they saw, but what was concluded. What was the purpose of setting up that experiment? And from this point now, we can see it is true that air exerts pressure. It is one of the destructors, C. But that does not, or is not in any way related to that particular question. It is not related to that particular question because from the apparatus, from the setup, you can clearly see that one. I want to say that when you are setting up such an experiment, basically look at the materials used. They can act as a guide. What are the materials? What is required in that particular experiment? Number two, what is the procedure? How do we set up that experiment? Number three, we have what is the observation? What did the learner observe? Number four, what is the conclusion? So basically, that is what this question entails. Water has weight is another distractor, but it's not in any way related to this question. Reason. We say that in most cases, when you look at the particular question here, or this particular question here, you have to relate it to your, or to the syllabus, relate it to the syllabus. Then from there, look at the materials that are involved. We know and we define matter as, matter is anything that has space, has weight and occupies space, or has mass for that matter. So water is a part of liquid, which is a state of matter. So it is true that it has weight, but it is not in any way related to this question. Then, so from this, we can say clearly the learners failed the question because the teachers failed to carry out the experiments in class as expected. And it's always important to make sure that the learners participate in carrying out these experiments, because the moment they do it themselves, it helps them to grasp the concepts easier. It will help them to remember what they have been taught. It also helps them when they participate in the assembling of the materials, when they participate in carrying out the experiment, it gets implanted in them deeply. So that question was failed mostly, and the learners were talking about air exhaust pressure. If you look at most of the feedback we got, it is, yes, it is a topic that's supposed to be taught in standard 4 about air exhaust pressure. It is there. In fact, it is even a question, an area that is tested in the exam, KCPE. For example, we had a question some years back about the positioning of the tank. We had some questions on positioning of the tap. If you go back to your analysis, you find this is this is one of the areas that is mostly failed. So in that particular, to conclude on that, I can say teachers, as you teach this question or this area or this particular topic, basically try to involve the learners. Try as much as possible to carry out the experiment beforehand, so that as you go to the exam or to the class, you are already prepared. You know what to observe. You know the conclusion of the conclusion. So the reason as to why the question was set or was failed is from our observation is the learners were not fully involved in this particular, in carrying out this particular experiment. The other area or the other question that we can look at is still on excuse me. Question number 13. Question number 13 is a question that deals with weather instruments. Weather is a topic in standard 5. And you know, under this topic of weather, most of the questions tested on weather are based on the weather instruments. We know that the weather instruments that are supposed to be taught at this particular level are wind vane. Wind vane is one of the weather instruments that's supposed to be taught. Number 2, we have the windsock. Windsock needs to be taught. We have the liquids and the air thermometer. They are there. We also have rain gauge. We also have the rain gauge. Now, let's pick on the wind vane, for example. Let's pick on the wind vane, for example. Wind vane is one of the weather instruments that is used to measure one aspect of weather, which is direction. It shows or it gives direction. It gives direction of wind or shows helps to measure the direction of wind. But for that instrument to work, there are various aspects that we need to look at. First and foremost, one area that is tested on wind vane or weather instruments are the materials. You can be told that the learners were given materials or assemble the following materials. Which instrument or which weather instruments were they supposed or were they expected to make or were they supposed to make? So you need to know the materials. Number 2, the procedure of making the instruments. The procedure of making the instruments. How is it supposed to be made? Number 3, we also need to know how the principle behind its working. It works because of a certain scientific principle. Which principle is it? Number 4, we also need to identify the aspects. I've talked about the materials, the procedure, the principle, which aspects. And through that, the learner is able to identify the mistake. That is what exactly this question was all about. The question simply asks, which of the following statement is true about a wind vane? For them to get the correct answer to this question, they must know how the instrument works, how the instrument is assembled, how the instrument looks like. So first and foremost, we look at number 1, A. The tail should be heavier than the head. First and foremost, we know that the wind vane or the arrow of the wind vane points where the wind is blowing from. So if the arrow points south, the wind is blowing from south. If the arrow points west, the wind is blowing from west. If it points east, the wind is blowing from east. So what makes this arrow or this arm to turn? What drives it so that it faces where the wind is coming from? One, we need to know that the tail of the wind vane and the arrow are made of metallic sheets. Now, these metallic sheets, or the arrow is always smaller as compared to the tail. The tail is broader. This is because as the wind hits the tail of the wind vane, as the wind, it gets obstructed, creating a force. That force turns the arm to make it face where the wind is blowing or coming from. So if the tail is smaller, if the tail is smaller than the arrow, then it means that the arm of the wind vane may not turn. And if it turns, maybe turn and face the wrong direction. In most cases, we find that when you are making or when you are putting the arm or fixing the arm, it's always important to find the balancing point of that particular arm so that it should be very balanced to enable it to turn freely as far as the wind or the wind direction is concerned. So the tail should be heavier than the head. That is true. That is true because of what I've said. It creates that force. It is that force that is caused by the obstruction of the tail of the wind vane that makes it turn and face where the wind is coming from. Then we have B. If it points south, the wind must be blowing towards south. The arrow of the wind vane points where the wind is coming from. So there's no way it can be. If it's this point can be correct. If it's points south, the wind must be blowing from south. That one cannot apply in this case. It is wrong, and it's a good instructor because you find that the learners are taught the two weather instruments. That's the way we have the wind vane and we have the windsock. So there's a kind of confusion. So B was a very good instructor to this question, but if the learner is taught very well and thoroughly and carries out the experiment, if the learner carries out making the instrument, he participates in making, assembling the material, participated in making the instrument, it helps because as they make, the teacher should also insist on the particular areas to look at. Then we go to C. It measures both the direction and the strength of wind. That one does not apply to the wind vane, it applies to the windsock. And the windsock, as we speak, that point also is a very good instructor because we find that one of the weather instruments that measures two aspects of wind is a windsock. So in this case, it should not apply here because R is expected to answer the question about the wind vane. And it is very clearly indicated in the question. The word true is in bold and capital letters. That helps the learner to capture. That's the key word in that particular question. So C does not apply to the wind vane. It applies to the windsock. And then we have D, it works as the principal matter occupies space. Now, that one, if you look at the wind vane does not have any space or any space or has to occupy. So it does not have a space where air has to occupy. So you find that as the wind strikes the tail of the wind vane, it makes it turn. So there's nowhere it is getting in. Therefore, this principle does not apply to the wind vane. It applies to the working principle of the windsock. The windsock is a sac. It has a sac which allows air or wind to get in. So B, C, and D were good instructors because as in this case, C and D perfectly apply to the wind. So that question was really felt, and the teachers need to insist mostly about the aspects we forget. We forget other very important points. Then we have another area, another question that was very failed. Question number 18. And look at question number 18. How they should maintain their use. So some of the ways in which tools can be maintained include sharpening. Sharpening tools is a way of maintaining tools. Which tools should be sharpened? Of course, those cutting tools. The cutting tools should be including knife and the likes. So they need to be sharpened as a way of maintaining them. We have cleaning them after use. This one is also a way of maintaining tools, because we say once the tools get used, they get dirty, and of course, cleaning them after use. And this one can apply to all tools. This way is this that question can be asked, which I'm going to look at. In a safe place. That one was a very good, let me say, it sounds very correct. It sounds very good, but it falls under, if you look at the syllabus, proper storage of tools. Now, why should the tools be stored properly? Why should the tools be stored properly? They should be stored properly, one, to avoid causing injuries. You know, they can cause injuries. Number two, the tools should be stored properly to avoid thefts. Number three, we should store tools properly. Of course, those that especially that have metallic parts. We should store tools properly, maybe for neatness, to make sure that your store or wherever you are placing your tools looks neat. So this question basically was testing whether the teachers know the difference between proper storage. And so this point C falls under proper storage of tools. If you look at the, it's clear proper storage is one of which student can be.
Can you unmute teacher? Teacher, you are muted, and we are not hearing you. Teacher David, you are muted. We are not hearing you. Can you unmute teacher David? Go home, go home. David, you are muted, please.
I hope you can hear me. Which of the following statement is true?
George. Okay, I hope they are let's just give them some minutes. I think they are checking the sound and the internet. So just please give us just 1 minute. I hope you can hear me. If you can hear me, say yes in the chat so that we know that we are getting each other. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. If you are hearing me, there is a problem with the network and the sound. So they are rectifying it. But yes. I think we can.
Polycarp, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yes, continue.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you for the information. Now we are talking about parts of a seed, and in this particular area, the learner is expected to know parts of a beet seed and parts of a maize grain and their functions. So to begin with, let's look at the seed, the beet seed. The beet seed has the following parts. One, it has a part called the cotyledon. It has the cotyledon. We have the outer covering known as the tester. We have the micropile, and we have the healer. Once the beet seed is split into two, we are able to see the inside of that particular seed. We are able to see now what we call the embryo, which is made up of the plumule and the radicle. The plumule and the radicle develop to form a new plant. The tester, or the outer covering, of the beet seed, is simply for protection. It protects that seed from bacteria, and other diseases. We have the micropile. Micropile is a tiny hole that allows air and water, moisture to get in during the process of germination. We have the hilum. The hilum is simply the point of attachment where that beet seed was attached to the pod. So then we have the base grain. The base grain has the following parts. We have a part where this grain was attached to the cob. That part where it was attached to the cob is known as a fruit scab. Now, why fruit scab? Because maize grain is considered to be a fruit. It is a fruit because it has two scars. One of the scars is called the fruit scar, which the point of attachment to the cob. We have on top there, we have another part called the style scar. This is a part where the style was attached to that particular grain. So the outer covering of the maize grain and the base, that is the outer covering, serves the same purpose. With the, it helps to protect. It helps to protect the internal parts of that particular grain. Then we have the endosperm. The endosperm is simply a food store. It's simply a food storage structure. Then we have, of course, the radicle and the plumule. They develop to form a new plant. So the question was, or the question is, the learners have been given all this for them to discern which one applies to base seed and which one applies to the bean seed. So let's look at the first one, A. Cotyledons store food for the base plants, or base seed for that matter. We find that the cotyledons the base grain has a cotyledon, but its purpose is mainly not storage as such. The cotyledon helps to protect that particular the embryo from drying up. It is simply it surrounds the embryo, and it helps to keep that particular part alive. That's why I find that seed or that grain can be planted even after years and still germinate because the embryo is still protected. So the base grain or the base seed stores its food in the endosperm. It stores food in the endosperm, and that is the food used by that particular embryo when developing or growing or germinating for that matter. Then we have B. Plumule comes out through the micropile. Now that question, or B, that one tests the procedure of germination. What happens first? Now in germination, first and foremost, the seed has to absorb water. Once it absorbs water through the micropile, or moisture for that matter, it swells up. After it swells up, the radicle which forms the root is the first one to develop. So it emerges first. The radicle emerges first. It emerges through the micropile. Once it emerges through the micropile, of course, the cotyledons split apart, and the plumule is able to penetrate and emerge through the tester and grows to a young seedling. So the plumule does not come out through the micropile. It is the radicle. The radicle first is the one that comes out through the micropile. And therefore we are saying the stages are absorption of water, swelling up of the seed, development of the radicle through the micropile. Then the plumule develops into the shoot. So we have C, the radicle comes out through the micropile. The radical comes out of the micropile. That is a very correct answer, and I think that's the one that that's the answer that you are supposed to have marked with. So the radical comes out through the micropile. Endosperm stores food in a bean seed. No, the endosperm does not store food in the bean seed. It stores food in the maize grain. So that particular question, as you teach, is always good to make sure that the learners are able to identify the parts of the maize grain and the parts of the bean. That way, now they're able to tell the uses or the functions of those parts. So that was another failed question. And from our point of view, we find that some of these things, if possible, try as much as possible to do them practically. Let them get these grains, let's get these bean seeds, let them split them, let them see the parts, let them identify the parts themselves. Then we have number 28. Number 28. Number 28. Number 28 is a question based on energy. That was a question based on energy, methods of heat transfer. It is in standard 5. The methods of heat transfer are mainly 3. We have 1, convection. Number 2, we have conduction. And number 3, we have radiation. Now, this particular question was based on convection. Now, if you happen to do these experiments practically, you will notice that the papers do not fall directly on the fire. Now, there is a tendency of learners talking about the heat or the hot fire is the one that is pushing the papers up. We know very well that when air is heated, it rises. When air is heated, it rises. When air is heated, it rises. So this fire here, as it burns, it heats the air within or and around it. And as it gets heated, it moves up in convection. Convection is simply moving from a hotter area, air moving from a hotter region to a cooler one. So the area around the fire is very hot, and therefore the air will move upwards. That explains why even smoke moves upwards, because it is hot air. It has hot air within it. So in this particular question, the learners are supposed to understand that the papers do not move on their own. They move because they are moved up. What moves them up? The hot air. What moves them up is the hot air. So the paper rose from the fire because hot air carries the papers upwards. Number 2, we have B, heat from the fire carries the paper upwards. Now, because if you look at the positioning of the papers are directly above the fire. Therefore, as the hot air moves up, it is moving up with the papers. And this convection, remember, applies even in liquids. In liquids, we also have convection. So, I don't want to go back to the details of the convection in liquids, but I can mention one thing, that when you are performing convection in liquids, we normally put some grains of sand, or you can just put some tea leaves at the bottom of the glass, or as we heat. We find that the sand grains tend to move up and down, up and down. So they don't move up on their own. They are moved by the water that is being heated. As it moves up, it carries within the standard grade. The same here. As the hot air rises up, it carries the papers away. It pushes the papers upwards. As more cold air comes in, gets heated, rises. So if you look at these choices, therefore, the papers rose from above the fire because the hot air carries the papers upwards. That is correct. Then we have heat from the fire. Heat from the fire carries the papers upwards. Now, remember, heat is a form of energy. This heat, the convection, for example, in particular, requires a medium. And the medium here is air. So it is a very good, B is a good distractor. It's a very good distractor. But for a child who understands that convection involves movement of a hot air upwards, then that child will be able to get the correct answer, which was A. C says the paper expands when heated. Matter, all states of matter expand when heated. That one is true, but in this particular question, it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply because, in fact, if you look at the positioning of those papers and the position of the fire, you find, so the C does not in any way apply in this particular experiment. We have D, heat makes the papers lighter than air. Also another good distractor. Remember, as we have said, it is the hot air that moves the papers upwards. As it moves up, it carries within the papers. So that is demonstration of convection. And remember, this one is also shown or indicated in your syllabus, where we talk about the convection box, the positioning of the candle, the positioning of the smoking paper, where the air comes in and where it gets out. Convection is shown in the convection box, which is very clearly indicated in most of our textbooks. Is also indicated very well, very clearly in the syllabus. So the reason why learners fail that question is because the distractors were they looked very good. They looked like answers, yet they are not answers. So as you teach that question or that particular topic, it's always important to make sure you do some of these experiments practically. Avoid teaching without performing the experiments. It's always important to carry out the experiments, let the learners observe, and let the learners make the observation. Still, I can touch slightly on the same. You find that at times they may have a strip of paper held above, or a strip of paper held above the fire, and that strip of paper keeps on flipping up and down. That is also another way that question can be tested. What makes that paper to flip up and down? It is because of convection, hot air rising up, hot air rising up. So we can now look at the last question in that particular paper, standard 6, that's question number 41. Question number 41. Question number 41 was also, is a grade standard 6 question based on health education. Common communicable diseases. And the common communicable diseases, they have talked about tuberculosis. They also talked about malaria and other communicable diseases. Now, from here, this subtopic falls under health education. We have the immunization schedule for infants. And you find measles and tetanus are immunizable diseases. They are mentioned in the immunization schedule. So if you look at this question, therefore, tuberculosis is highly infectious, and especially if a person does not seek treatment immediately. In fact, that is why a child is immunized against TB at birth, BCG. Therefore, tuberculosis is an airborne disease caused by a bacteria, and it affects the lungs. So it can easily be spread either through coughing, droplet infection, can also be spread through sharing of utensils such as cups with a person who has tuberculosis. So it is communicable. Then we have malaria. Malaria is a protozoan disease caused by a parasite spread by female Anopheles mosquito. So malaria is highly communicable. Can be passed from one person to the other. And that's why some of the measures involve sleeping under treated mosquito nets, clearing breeding sites for mosquitoes. Because as you clear the breeding sites for mosquito, in fact, that's one of the most effective way. We thank God that they have now come up with a vaccine against malaria. Once you clear the breeding places for mosquitoes, you simply render them, you destroy their breeding places so they are not able to multiply. So malaria is communicable. Then you have measles. Measles is also very communicable. A child mostly is immunized against measles at 9 months. Can be spread. And that's the reason why you find it's called school disease. It spreads very fast, especially amongst school children. Tetanus. Tetanus mostly affect the germs that cause tetanus are mostly found in the soil. And you find that as you walk, maybe you may end up stepping on rusty material, like a nail, you are cut by a wire or something like that. Mostly, that's where the tetanus germs get into your body. So out of those four diseases, tetanus is not easily spread from one person to the other. In fact, the germs that cause tetanus are found in the soil. Therefore, from this point of view, it is very, very important, because even the syllabus requires you to identify other communicable diseases. Cholera is also communicable. Typhoid is also communicable. And other waterborne diseases. We have immunizable diseases such as measles is communicable. So, and yellow fever. So it's always important to make sure that you tackle those particular areas very, very carefully. Very, very carefully. So, with the statistics paper, most of the questions that were failed are the ones I've mentioned. And I would encourage teachers, and especially those lessons, those topics that involve carrying out experiments, to do the same. You should not try to use shortcuts, because shortcuts sometimes they are very, very expensive. You find you teach, but the child learner may not be able to grasp the concepts. So there was around 6 questions. There might be others, but mostly those were the complaints that we have received. Now you can look at the other paper, which is 7. Can go to the paper. So in paper 7, or study 7, some of the questions that were failed are as follows. Number 9, the 7th question, number 9. Question number 9 was a biological method of controlling crop pests. This topic falls under plants. Subtopic crop pests. we say that this crop pest can be grouped into two. We have those that are field pests, those that attack crops while in the field. They also have the storage ones, those that attack crops in the store. The field pests include pests such as aphids, include pests such as stalk borer, stalk or stem borer. We have birds. Birds also part of crop pest, because especially a certain type of bird that destroys cereals in large quantities, especially rice and others. So we have the storage pests. One of them is the rats. The other one is termites. But you find that most examiners try to avoid using the word termite. They use the word white ants. So the question basically was open. It was not categorized to either field or storage pests. So which of the following method of controlling crop pests is a biological method of controlling crop pests? Uprooting the affected plants. Now, if you look at that particular answer, uprooting is a mechanical way. It's like digging. Uprooting is mechanical. It's like digging out, slashing. Those are mechanical. So the moment you uproot the affected plants, that one is classified or grouped mostly under the mechanical way of controlling pests. We have weeding. Weeding is also mechanical, because the moment you weed, of course, you reduce. You reduce the congestion within the plants, areas around the plant, and you destroy the hiding places for these particular pests. So weeding is a way of controlling crop pests. Spray with herbicides, that one is a chemical way. It will kill the herbicide. In fact, they are talking about a chemical method or chemical way. But if you look at this question, can you find that we have D? And D is a question that requires a learner to understand that a ladybird is an insect, and this insect feeds on pests, mostly aphids. So introducing that ladybird to feed on the pests or the aphids helps to control the pests biologically, because you are using a living organism to destroy the other living organism. So herbicides is a chemical, weeding mechanical, uprooting is mechanical. So the biological way of controlling crop pests here was supposed to be is introducing a ladybird, because a ladybird is simply a carnivorous animal. It feeds on other animals, and mainly the aphids. Aphids are known to suck plant leaves, plant sap, and transmit diseases, and especially to vegetables. Therefore, ladybird is a way of controlling, or is a biological method of controlling crop pests. Then from there we have question number 24. Question number 24. Question number 24. Question number 24 was simply based on properties of matter, again, floating and sinking. So 24, yes. It's for floating and sinking. Now, these are questions in grade standard 4. Properties of matter. They are supposed to learn factors affecting floating and sinking, and materials that can sink and those that can float. The factors that affect floating and sinking are simply the shape can affect floating and sinking, or affects floating and sinking. We have the material. Material affects floating and sinking, and of course we have the weight. Now, shape, mostly when we want to show that shape affects floating and sinking, What we do is simply take a bottle top. If you take a bottle top and you place it carefully on the surface of the water, it floats. The same bottle top, if you take it and crush it, put it back into the water, it sinks. Now, the reason why it sinks is not because of the weight. Weight has not changed. The material still remains the same, but the shape has changed. You have crushed it. So the moment you crush it, you simply change the shape, and that makes it sink. Then we have the material. Mostly the materials whose density, I don't want to mention density, but whose they are heavier than water, as we say. You find that something like a stone, iron materials such as a nail, iron balls, a pin, a razor blade made of steel. So those materials that are made of metal will largely sink in water, not unless they have been affected by another factor that you have said up there about shape. So material affects floating and sinking. Wood, regardless of how big or how large it is, if the water it is being placed in is substantial, you find it floating. If you take something like plasticine or clay, you make a ball, put in water, it sinks to the bottom. The same with the plastic, it sinks to the bottom, because the material it is made of is a sinker. So you find that size is not a factor that affects floating and sinking. Reason: take a small piece of iron, small piece of nail, put in water, it sinks. Take a large piece of wood, put in water, it floats. It might have greater mass than the nail, but you find that the nail sinks to the bottom while the wood floats. So size in this case does not affect floating and sinking, because if it were about size, the bigger piece of wood should sink while the nail should float. But the opposite happens. The nail sinks, the wood floats. So size does not in any way affect. Take a small piece of wood, put in water, it floats. Take a bigger piece of wood, put in water, it still floats. Regardless of the size. Regardless of the size, it floats. So then we have weight. If, for example, we are talking about, or let's take something like a ship or a boat, for example. You find that the more it is loaded with people, the more it's loaded with luggage, the more it sinks in water. So this is because the force that is being exerted by that boat on the surface of the water is great. So if more weight is added, it ends up sinking, because it is exerting more force from above than the water is exactly from below, the upthrust. So you find weight in one way or the other affects floating and sinking. So an overloaded boat is likely to sink in water. Material affects floating and sinking. Shape affects floating and sinking. Size does not. You have to be very careful with this size. Demonstrates. You can demonstrate using the same material. As big a piece of wood and a smaller piece of wood, put in water, they'll both float. A small piece of nail and a larger piece of nail, put in water, they both sink. So that tells you that size does not affect floating and sinking. So this is something that we need to do and do practically. The moment you do it practically, it simply comes out very clearly. Then we look at number 27. 27. The 27 is a question on properties of matter. Effects of heat. Effects of heat. So good. Now, the experiment was about effects of heat on matter. and specifically effects of liquids. The liquid was put inside, the colored liquid was put inside a bottle, a glass bottle that is transparent. So the liquid is colored, and you can, it is tightly closed such that there's no liquid that escapes. So when this liquid is put, when this container is put outside, the liquid gets heated. And of course, we know one effect of heat on matter is expansion. When heat is increased, the matter expands. And this applies to all states of matter. It applies to liquids, it applies to solids, it applies to gases. When air gets heated, it expands. When liquids get heated, they expand. When solids get heated, they also expand. Now, from this setup, it is very clear that when this liquid is heated, it has no other way out other than through the tube. So the moment it's put under the sun, it absorbs heat from the surrounding, gets heated, and it rises. Once it rises, the level of the colored water in the tube moves upwards. So, if you look at this then, the question was simply testing the effects of heats. See the multiple choices. Multiple choices. Yeah. How do I? It is learning, you're controlling it. Pull it up further. So, yes, we see that. So, if you look at this, therefore, what was their conclusion? Remember, it was not about the observation here. The observation will help them make the conclusion. What was their conclusion after they took the setup outside? The level of water rose. The level of water in the tube rose because of the expansion. Expansion simply means occupying more space, occupying larger space. B, we have solids expand and contract when cooled. It is true, but that solids expand, and it's a fact that solids expand and contract when cooled. That one is not correct because they expand when heated, contract when cooled, but they have been mixed up. So that is simply a distractor. The glass itself will get heated. It is true. But we kind of disregard the expansion of the glass. But sometimes if they go to the particular, to that particular concept of expansion of solids, the question is tested in this manner. You are told that the moment immediately the glass or the setup is left out in the sun, you find the level moving down slightly, then moves up. So the question can be asked, what was the reason why the level moved downward slightly and then moved up? So we can associate that movement of the liquid down to the expansion of the glass. But in this case, it should not be, because we have been told the observation they made is the water rose up. Then we have liquids expand when heated. Liquids expand when heated. That one, so we have the observation, sorry. In A, it's a correct observation. C is their conclusion. As I said earlier, when setting up the experiment, there is what you see and there is what you conclude. What was the purpose for setting up this experiment? The observation is the rising of water, but the conclusion is the expansion of the expansion of the liquid. So the moment it's put outside, it expands. Once it expands, it moves up. If it is brought in a cooler environment where it loses the heat to the surrounding, of course, the level of the liquid moves downwards, showing contraction. Then we have the level of water drops. That is not true. It will only drop if the temperature is lowered. If the bottle loses heat to the surrounding. That is what we call cooling. But as in this case, the experiment was set out, or the bottle was left outside, and therefore we kind of assume that there was a lot of heat and the water moved up the straw. And the moment it moves up the straw, that shows expansion in liquids. Expansion in gases can be shown in other experiments, not this one, where a bottle is fitted or a balloon is fitted in the mouth of the bottle, then the bottle is dipped in a basin of water. We find the balloon inflating or expanding. Expansion in solids cannot be shown in this. Let's say we kind of disregard in this question because we are not told about the movement of the level of water down slightly. So we kind of disregard it. So according to this, therefore, the best is liquids expand when heated, because that is what they concluded after observing it move upwards. So we go to question number 29. Question number 29. Question 29 is a question on human body. Sorry, not human body, but human body, functions of the breathing system, functions of the nose. When it comes to this, therefore, you need to look at the nose as part of the breathing system. Other than the nose, of course, we have the windpipe, what we call the trachea. Then we have the bronchus. Then we have the smaller tubes, not the bronchioles. Then we have the alveoli, or what we call the air sacs, and then the lungs. So these, the alveoli, the bronchus are found inside the lungs. You find that this question was simply testing whether a learner can remember the functions of various parts of the breathing system. Now, without going to very much details, I want to say that when it comes to the nose, there is cleaning of the air. What exactly cleans the air in the nose? We have the hairs. The hairs in the nose clean the air. The hairs clean the air. We also have the mucus. So the mucus and the hair clean up by trapping dust particles. Cleaning up the air by trapping dust particles. Then we have inside the air, inside the nose, we have some blood vessels, the blood capillaries. The blood capillaries help in warming the air. It helps in warming the air. Then we have the air is also moistened. There's some moisture is added. So still in the nose, we have addition of moisture. The air is moistened. Therefore, there are three things that happen in the nose. One, cleaning of the air. Two, warming of the air. And three, moistening of the air. Cleaning does not end in the nose. It moves on along the trachea. That's why you find every other time you keep on clearing your throats, because there are some dust particles and other foreign matter that are trapped within. So cleaning is done in the nose and also in the trachea. Moistening is done in the nose. Warming is done in the nose. So the air we breathe in normally is cleaned in there, mainly in the nose. Remember we have said that there are three things that happen in the nose: cleaning up, warming, and moistening. The cleaning up is done by the hairs and the mucus. The moistening is done by the mucus, and the warming up is done by the blood capillaries. So in this case, the best answer was supposed to be nose. I don't know why the learners were kind of going for the esophagus. We need to avoid, teach these systems clearly so that the learner is able to identify or able to distinguish between the two, between the trachea and the esophagus. Is not part of the breathing system. Lungs and the air sacs, those ones are part of the breathing system. So in the air sacs, that is where we have the exchange of gases. So we don't need to go much to the details of that, the breathing mechanism, but we need to know what happens at every stage of number 35. Which of the following is not needed when comparing capillarity in different soils? Now, that is a question based on that is 35, soil, properties of soil. In the properties of soil, the learners are tested on various aspects. One, texture. Number two, they are tested on capillarity. Number three, they are tested on drainage. Capillarity, drainage, texture. And out of these, we are supposed to know how to carry out these experiments. Let's start with capillarity, because that's what is tested in this question. What is capillarity? Capillarity is simply water rising through the soil particles. Water rises up through the soil particles. So when you are carrying out this experiment on capillarity, there are things that need to be involved. So one, we require the tubes. Number two, we require a piece of cloth or cotton wool. Number three, we require a basin of water. We require soil. And of course, not one type of soil, but the three types of soil. We have sand, loam, and clay. We also require a stopwatch to find out after how many minutes and which soil allowed the water to rise highest in it. So water will simply, when you are carrying out this experiment, you need to know that the soil should be dry, that is one. The soils must be dry, all of them. The things that we require, the procedure of setting up this experiment, the amount of soils must be the same. The amount of cotton wool or piece of cloth should be the same. We also need to know that you don't dip one tube deeper in water than the other. So when you are carrying out this experiment, therefore, we are simply finding out which soil allows water to rise through it very the highest. And this one is mostly determined by the size of the soil particles. The smaller the soil particles, the higher the capillarity. The larger the soil particles, the lower the capillarity. However, it is important to note that when you dip these tubes in water, the water tends to rise a bit faster inside the soil for some minutes and then stops. It rises faster, then stops. This one here is because of the large particles. But after rising for some time, it stops. But the clay soil, the water rises up slowly, but gradually it goes the farthest. That's why we are saying when you're carrying out this experiment, always ensure that you give it, you don't just dip it in water and remove. You need to be allowed time. And of course the time should be the same, the time allowed. We don't require the funnels. The funnels are required when carrying out the experiment on drainage, ability of water to hold, or ability of soil to hold water. So in drainage, we require the funnels. In drainage, we require the cotton wool. In drainage, we require a collecting jar or collecting container, because we simply consider how much water was collected after it went through the soil. So in capillarity, we don't require the funnels. Funnels are not important. So transparent plastic bottle, this one here can help us to find out, or can help us to find out, or to see the contents, what is inside. That's why it should be transparent. A piece of cloth, of course, to hold the soil within. We can use a piece of cloth, or we can use cotton wool. Mainly is to hold the soil within the tube, and it also helps the water to pass. We should not put a material that is not porous. So that's why we're talking about a piece of cloth or cotton wool. A stopwatch, we have said, is simply for timing. So our funnels are not necessary. Then we go to question number 41. 41 is a question dealing with the human body. Question 41 was simply human body, the first topic in standard 6. Which of the following is not a physical change during adolescence? Physical change. Physical change. These are simply the changes that affect the body of that particular child or that particular person. And these are things that can be seen. First and foremost, we have these physical changes can be grouped into two. There are those that affect the boys, there are those that affect the girls. But the question here is simply adolescents. So it is distinguished boys and girls. And therefore, if we look at the choices that were given, they affected both boys and girls. So the physical changes include things such as growth of shoulders broaden. We have growth of hair in the pubic places. We have changes such as in girls, they may experience menstrual flow, enlargements of the breasts, pimples may appear on the face. So those are things that can be seen, physical, they can be seen. There are those that affect both. For example, the simply the maturation of the sexual organs or the sex cell for that matter. We find a girl is able to ovulate and the boy is able to release sperms. Those, if the question is not distinct, then this is a common change that happens in both. Increase in height and weight, that one affects both. Pimples may appear on the face, that one may affect both. But when it comes to menstruation, that one affects girls. Releasing of sperms or wet dreams, that one affects the boys. So the best answer to that question was A, because mood swings or mood changes are brought about by chemicals that we are calling the hormones. These are not physical. They are simply emotional changes. And most of the learners should be able to distinguish between the two. Getting angry, defying authority, that is mood swings and kind of, those ones are emotional changes, are not physical. Therefore, with that, I can say that most of the areas that were failed there, we have tackled them. Now we can go to the last one, which is standard 8. The standard 8 paper. We start with question number 3. Question number 3 was health education, drug abuse. Drug abuse. Now, this is a topic in standard 7. And drug abuse is simply using drugs for a purpose that were not intended. But we are confined to some of the drugs that we are confined to by the syllabus include the commonly abused. That is alcohol, that is heroin, that is tobacco, that is bang or marijuana, and the likes. Now, under these effects of these drugs, we have the effects. The effects can be grouped into two. We have the physical, we have the effects that can be grouped into two. Those that are social, for that matter, the social ones and the health. The social effects of drugs. These are effects that affect the other people living with the drug addicts, maybe the community, the family, and the likes. The immediate community that the drug addicts lives. So they may include things such as accidents. It's a social effect. This person is on drugs, he causes an accident, he kills innocent people. We have family breakups. Family breakups, that's a social effect. The health effect is an effect that affects the person himself or herself, such as maybe we can talk about hallucinations. We can talk about poor health. We can talk about staggering. We can talk about lack of appetite and many others, hallucinations. So this question was simply testing the effects of alcohol. Alcohol is not a hallucinogen. Hallucination simply means seeing things that do not exist. Hallucinogens include drugs such as heroin, cocaine, and bang. They make the person tend to see things that are not there. However, we need to understand that alcohol causes loss of memory. It kills the brain cells. So gradually you find somebody loses memory because of taking alcohol in large quantities or continuous taking of alcohol. Of course, family breakup is a social effect. As I've said, the person may not be able to support his family or her family, so it ends up breaking. Then poor health, definitely. Alcohol affects the liver. Excessive consumption of alcohol can cause liver cirrhosis, death of the liver cells. So automatically this leaves a person with poor health. And of course, the person is also not able to eat. So the correct answer to that question was supposed to be hallucinations, because you have said hallucinations are mainly caused by drugs such as heroin, drugs such as cocaine, drugs such as mandrax, drugs such as bang. So those ones are referred to as hallucinations because they cause hallucinogens because they cause hallucinations. Number 4, this is a question based on plants interdependence in grade standard 7. Now we find how plants, we normally discuss how plants are depend on animals in one or the other, and how animals depend on plants. So this question was simply testing insectivorous plants. Insectivorous plants are simply plants that trap insects. They trap insects because they lack enough nitrogen. The bodies of insects contain nitrogen. So they trap them so that they are able to get enough nitrogen. And that's why I say they grow mainly in soils lacking enough nitrogen. So insectivorous plants have special adaptations. Insectivorous plants have special adaptations. They have leaves which contain some sticky substance that attracts insects. The moment they land there, anyway, there are different ways in which they trap them, but mainly we can have sap, which is scented. This scent simply attracts the insects. The moment they land there, they are digested. They are simply trapped and digested. So I don't know why the learners went for the flower. They were not able to distinguish between insectivorous plants and the role of the flower in pollination. So flower, I'm not saying that insectivorous plants have no flowers. They do. They do have flowers for reproduction purposes. But for them to trap the insects, they have used they trap using their leaves. They have special adaptations. There are those that have hairs. There are those that have sticky juice. There are those that lock the insects inside cup-like structures. So it is simply a way in which they're able to get nutrients. So it's an interdependence between plants and animals. Number nine is a question based on the study 8 work, health education. Control measures for HIV/AIDS. Control measures for HIV and AIDS. So control measures for HIV and AIDS. We say that there are various ways. There are various ways in which HIV and AIDS can be controlled. One of them is by creating public awareness. Creating public awareness, informing people about the existence of a disease. If you look, for example, within this period that we are having COVID, I think more resources were channeled towards informing people about the danger, about the presence of the disease, about the danger posed by the disease, about the signs and symptoms of the disease, about way to control the disease. That is creating awareness. To be aware, meaning that you are aware the disease exists. It causes this and this symptom. It's caused by this and this manner, or it's caused by this and this manner. How do you protect yourself? So that is what we are referring to as public awareness. Telling people about the existence of a disease is creating awareness. So we can also do that through campaigns. We can also control the spread of HIV through campaigns. Campaigns involves, that involves people like the local chief barazas. When he is administering his duties as a chief, he needs to tell people about the existence of a disease.
Okay, I think there is a problem there with the teacher, the internet, but I think it's being worked on. Let's just wait. Then we see if it's gonna work. So we are still waiting. I hope you are hearing me. And say yes there to confirm you are still with us. The internet, I think it's being worked on. Let's just wait. Then we see it's gonna work. Okay.
Therefore, if you look at the question, therefore, mass education and control can be conducted through the following, except we have public rallies. Mass education can be treated through public rallies, can be treated through seminars, can be treated through workshops. But when it comes to formal informal meetings, mainly this one is a way of creating public awareness. And I've said mass is simply something or a method of communicating where you're able to reach many people. You're able to reach many people at once. You're able to reach so many people at once. So A is a way of controlling HIV and AIDS, yes, but that one is simply by creating public awareness. And the others are mass education. You can create mass education through rallies. You invite so many people, you talk to them, and that one. So the best answer to that question was supposed to be A. Then we go to question number 11. Question number 11, which of the following plants does not store food in the stem? Functions of various parts, external parts of plants. That question is based on standard 5. Topic is standard 5 plants, functions of various parts of plants, external parts especially. Now we have the functions of the roots, we have the function of the stems, we have the functions of the leaves, and of course we have the function of the seeds, the fruits and the seeds. Now here the question is basically testing functions of the stem. One of the functions of the stem is storage of foods. However, not all plants store food in their stem. We have those store food in their roots. There are those that store food in their fruits, even leaves. So a carrot is a tuber, is a root tuber. It stores food in its roots. Therefore, it can't be the answer to this question. We have sugarcane. Most of us have eaten sugarcane. That succulent part, that stew, is a stem and is simply food storage structure. So sugarcane stores food in the stem. Ginger is a rhizome. Ginger is a rhizome. It simply grows under the soil. And then you find the shoot emerging from there, basically from that particular stem. Now, somebody may ask, why are we calling it a stem, yet it is underground? It is because if you take that ginger, the rhizome, cut a part of it, plant, it will grow into a new plant. The same applies to sugarcane. If you cut a part of sugarcane, plant it, it will grow into a new plant. That way, unlike others, like carrots, if you want to plant a carrot, you have to allow it to grow to maturity, produce seeds. We plant the seeds. Other than the carrots, we also have something called the sweet potato, arrowroot. Those ones are root tubers. They store food in their roots. Cactus. Cactus, we know all of us that is a plant that is found in dry areas. Most of his leaves are reduced to spines. So mainly the stem performs the duties, that are the function that are supposed to be done by that's supposed to be done by the leaves. So storage of water is in the stem. Storage of mineral salts is in the stem. Storage of food. So we find cactus is also stored in there. So carrot is not a stem tuber. It does not store food in the stem. It stores food in its roots. It stores food in its roots. So the one that is not a root tuber, that is not a stem tuber, there is the one that stores food in the stem is a carrot. But remember, sugarcane and cactus store food in their sugarcane and cactus store food in their stems, but they are not stem tubers. A stem tuber is mainly underground. Stem tuber, a tuber is underground. A swollen underground stem is a stem tuber. A swollen underground root is a root tuber. So sugarcane is not a stem tuber. It does not store food. It stores food in the stem, yes, but the stem is not underground. The same applies to cactus. Cactus stores food in the stem, yes, but it is not a stem tuber. What is a tuber? A swollen underground stem or root. So I hope that one is very clear, because sometimes examiners ask that question, which among the following is a stem tuber? And then you find people talking about sugarcane. Sugarcane is not a stem tuber, neither is cactus. A tuber must be underground, either stem or root. So I hope that point is clear. we go to, or we look at the next question. We look at the next question. That was question number 11. Let me see question number 11. Question number 11. Oh, yes. So we go to number 14. Question number 14. Which of the following percentages of components of air is correctly merged with its use? The question number 14 is based on properties of matter, standard 6, components of air and their uses. So they have simply given the percentages for the learners to identify the gases. So the components of air are nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and rare gases, also known as inert gases. So when it comes to the nitrogen gas occupies the largest percentage of air, around 78%. Then we have rare gases which occupy around 0.97%. And these rare gases are many. We have a number of them. We don't need to go to the details. So nitrogen is required or is used mainly by leguminous plants. Leguminous plants are simply plants such as beans, plants such as peas, groundnuts, green grams. They have what we call root nodules. Root nodules are simply swellings found within their roots or around their roots. These swellings contain some bacteria. This bacteria changes the nitrogen gas to nitrates, or to a fertilizer. So we find that the nitrogen they make or they obtain from the air, they use it to make proteins. So these plants are many sources of proteins, and you know that. When it comes to classifying food groups, we normally talk about legumes. Legumes include beans, include peas, include groundnuts and the likes. So if we work with that, therefore, we find A, making proteins is correct. Putting out fire, that's not a function of nitrogen, that's a function of carbon dioxide. It doesn't support burning. Then you have C, making plants foods. That one basically is the function of carbon dioxide, which is used, which is a basic raw material in the process of photosynthesis. So you find that one, making plant food or photosynthesis is simply a function performed by carbon dioxide. Combustion or burning, that is a function of oxygen. So even without taking, we find that even without considering the other side defined, automatically you get the answer as choice A. Now, when it comes to such questions, it is basically important to help the learner to understand, to work out with elimination. Because at times you find the learner gets mixed up because you look at this column, then goes to that column, goes to this column, goes to that column. But with elimination, if you use elimination as your method, automatically you find the answer is outright. So we go to number 16. Which of the following is used to measure the amount of matter in an object? That question is simply based on properties of matter, characteristics, the general characteristics. Mass is simply the quantity of matter. Quantity are the amount of matter in a substance. The amount of matter in a substance. the amount of matter in a substance. So mass is not the same as weight. Mass is not the same as weight. So which of the following instrument is used to measure the amount of matter? Now we look at something called a weighing scale. Weighing scale is common in most shops, especially before the coming of the digital ones. We used to have one where meat was placed on one side and a known mass placed on the other side. That's a beam balance. It is simply balancing what is on this side with what is on the other side. What amount of matter here is equal to this amount of matter on the opposite side. So when you are measuring, remember the question is very specific here. Which instrument is used to measure the amount of matter in an object? Mass is not an instrument. It's simply a quantity, the amount of matter in a substance. Beam balance. I have said the weighing scale is an example of a beam balance. A seesaw is an example of a beam balance. A heavier person sits on this side, a lighter one sits on this side. You have to create that distance so that you're able to balance them. We are comparing simply this mass with this mass. Spring balance is used to measure force. We can use spring balance to measure weight. We can use spring balance to measure friction. We can use spring balance to measure gravity, force. So the extension of that particular spring. And therefore you find the units that are used in a spring balance are mainly newtons, because it measures, it helps in measuring, or it is used in measuring the weight. So with that, therefore, A and D could not be possible answers. A and D could not be possible answers, because the question is simply testing the instrument, and the instrument here is beam balance, B. And then we simply we look at the next question, 46, question number 46. Question number 46.
Animals there. Lakini to private school kuna ujinga. Why would you put animals there?
David, we are not getting you. Okay. I think the question that is remaining, which is the last question, is question number 46. Which one of the following activities is done by farmers during rainy season? And I think we normally have only 2 seasons. We have 3 seasons. One is rainy, the other one is dry, and the other one is maybe the normal seasons. And the most answer here, according to me, is supposed to be we cannot harvest during rainy season. Watering is done in both. Plowing not be done during rainy season, and therefore I will go with weeding as the correct answer for that. So as we wait for David to conclude, I don't know if George is getting me. George, if you are getting me, please. George. David, now they are not there. So thank you very much for listening. Mine will be very, very, very easy now, but our facilitator has covered most of the work. And what actually I want to talk about is now just how do we prepare our candidates for KCP? And I would like to present something there, so that you'll be able to see. I think you are able to see that, my screen. So if you're able to see my screen, please say yes in the chat so that I know that you're able to see it. Please kindly, let's me see. Yes, thank you very much. So we'll take you through this last session, and I'm going to take a very few minutes on the same, because most of the things have been answered by our first facilitator. My name is Polycarp Teto. I'm one of the directors in Exam Hub, and if you need my number, you can get it there. So the very first, I will just take you through the objective of science, primary science. These are just general objectives. And the main thing, this one is you can get them online, you can get them in your newsletters. You can also get them in the syllabuses. So I will not take time here. You can go and read them later. They develop the ability to observe and explore the environment, develop manual and mental skills for rational decision-making, develop creativity and critical thinking in addressing new and emerging challenges, develop and use appropriate skills and technologies for solving problems, and then develop positive attitude towards self and environment, manage and conserve the available resources, and improve the body physical fitness and maintain good health. And lastly, acquire basic scientific knowledge. So these are basically the general objectives that are required by the Kenya National Examination Council for a teacher to instill in the life of the learners. And as the teacher said first, that the science is spiral. If it is human body, it is from grade 1, class 1 to class 8. If it's health, up to the last class, like that until the end. So all these skills are supposed to be developed in the lives of learners as they progress in their level of studies. So you can go through those ones later. And this one, I think I explained to you last time what it means to be a teacher is teaching 100%, learner is learning 100%. Then we do evaluation, then you do analysis, then you do feedback. And that's why now the first facilitator was talking about the most failed questions. They are the feedback that you got from you after you have done analysis of the paper that we did. So that's what Kenya Private School Association want to help the people who are doing our exams. That after every exams, we are not just going to leave you like that. We are going to come and then we explain to you how the questions were supposed to be answered as they have been done, so that at least when you go back to the students, you'll be able to get them, to teach them the right thing. So thank you for listening. And I think now we have done with the feedback part. Mine will be very easy, just to give you the brief on the performance of KCP. So KCP performance, as you can see, how it has been. I know teachers for science, sometimes we always enjoy getting good mean scores during the normal time of teaching. You see, we get mean score of 80, like this one, the exam. The first school I saw had 88 point something, almost 89%. And then we enjoy these ones in school. And then realizing when KCP comes, very few schools normally get a mean score of 80. And we ask ourselves, why is it that our children knew the science was our best, but now when it comes to KCP, we don't get the right marks? In KCP, what they do, they don't give raw marks, the one that we normally calculate 98, 100, 96, 94. Kenya National Examination Council does not give that marks. So Kenya give what we call, the examining body give what we call standard marks. And those standard marks are gotten this way. So this is I think a summary for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And you can see there's what we call national mean. National mean is gotten by calculating the mean score of all the schools, all the students that did that examination. Sometimes like calculating the mean of 100 million people. And it is raw marked, not times 2, so they don't multiply by 2. They just raw marked 50. So you can see this one, 30.91 for 2013, and 33, 27, 30, 27, like that, as you can see on your screen. Those ones are the national mean of the country. So it's gotten by calculating the mean of the raw ticks, the number of ticks, that there are 50, that one. So the children get that. You can also see this. The standard deviation is the variation of marks from the top to the bottom. How are the marks varying? What was the difference between these marks? And therefore, they calculate it there. So these two things are what they use to give the marks for the students at the end of the what? At the end of the year. So what do they do now after that? Now they use this formula here that we have here. I think those who are in mathematics, the formulas remain the same. So what they give the students is 50 marks. Each and every child has 50 marks plus X. This X here is the number of ticks that child is having in that paper. If that KCP year, like now we are preparing for 2022 or 2021, but now the ticks that the child is going to get, that is what we are going to talk about. Then minus the mean, that national mean that we are having there, we subtract it. Then we multiply what you have here by 15, and then get what we divide it with the standard deviation for that year. So if you take 2020, for example, if you look at 2020, you see the national mean was 26.66, and the standard deviation was 8.49. If you calculate it well, I think I did not calculate it well, you realize that the child who scored the highest in the country was supposed to have 90. This means the national examination for 2020 was marked out of 49. There was a question for 39. I think you can check it in your work. It was not marked. What was the reason? Because the choices and the questions were not related. So what they did, they ignored that question. So if you calculate, you realize the highest person was supposed to get 90 as far as that year was concerned. So you can use this table, the standard deviation and this one, to advise your students accordingly. They can even calculate their marks. From 2013, they calculate, if they do a paper like our paper, the one that we did, tell them calculate your mean in 2013, what about 2014, what about 2015, like that until 2020, then you get the average, then roughly you know exactly what your child is going to get as come the next the examination. So prepare them well for that. Another thing which we can talk about is the table of specification. How is the paper for science tested? So this is what we also want to emulate. We want to use this format of testing. That if you look at 2020, human body questions were 5, followed by 2019, they were also 5, 2018, they were 5, 2017, they were 9. So roughly between 9 and 4 there, human body questions are supposed to be there. Then health education, the same, 7, 7, 7, 6. Then weather, 2, 2, 2, 2. Then plants, 5, 5, 5, 5. Then 6, 2017. Animals, 5, 5, 4, 3. You can see water, 4, 4, 4, 2. You can see making work easier, 3, 3, 3, 4. These ones, they test them according to the objectives. How many objectives are there for human body? How many objectives are there until we reach making work easier? So just get them. So as you prepare your learners for KCP, make sure that you have touched all the objectives that they are supposed to cover. There are so many objectives. What I've done is I've turned the objectives that are there, the specific ones, into questions. So you give them to learners from grade 3 to class 8. Give them to learners. In human body, if you are supposed to name parts, just change that objective to questions so that they be able to check have they achieved all the objectives that are required. Once they have done that, then they will be able to relate the questions the way they are in KCP. You can see energy still remain the main one. Energy, they are still testing 8, 8, 8. Only 2017, they tested 4. So also advise them accordingly so that they be able to know which topics, like whether they are living in class 6, tell them that even though you have left weather in class 6, you need to know very well that weather is tested in KCP. And mostly, as the teacher said, weather instruments, the solar system, and then the sky, plus the what? The clouds. So check that one also as you advise them. So that's how the NEC test their examinations. They use all the 12 topics and they distribute marks according to the specific objective that are in that particular topic, topic. So make sure you know that when it comes to KCP. Now, what are the type of questions that are tested in KCP? If you go through KCP paper well, as other subjects, science also have the Bloom taxonomy, the one that we normally have knowledge, analysis and synthesis. We have comprehension, we have evaluation, application, and analysis. So what happened is, for science, it's now different. You realize that the high order questions are so many as compared to the knowledge questions. The knowledge questions are like functions and uses. They just test the learner knowledge. Do they know the function of canine? Do they know the functions of female reproductive parts and all those kind of things? So just advise them to know that function questions, they are not as many as the remaining questions because they are just testing the knowledge, and science test application. Like if you look at the question of 2020, there's a question they ask, and let me try to share it. You see it, what they ask the learners about. There's a question, let me look at it. Then I show you that question. 2020, it was not this one. Just wait 1 minute. I want to show you a question here that they tested and the learners were not expecting it. 2020, hope you'll be able to see it. Let me do away with that one for a bit. If you look at, there's a question here that they were testing about definition. It was just very, very simple, but the learners were not able to get the correct answers because of cramming. Science, we normally advise students not to cram, because if you cram, you realize that you will not be able to get the correct answers. I don't know whether we'll get it. Which number was it? It was talking about how heat is transferred through a glass. I don't know if that is it. Higher, this one here, question number 33. Heat transfer through a glass is by, so learners, first of all, they thought that glass is a poor conductor of heat. But if they did not know that there is a definition that conduction is the transfer of heat through solid. So they can use any solid and then ask you, heat transfer through this is by what? So the answer was supposed to be conduction, but you realized most learners were not able to get the correct answer because they first of all think that the question was not correct in the first place. So please, when we are preparing learners, let us know, let them know which type of questions are they expecting in the examination. There is process question. Process questions are divided into 3. Number 1, classifying questions. The Roman numbers are written, and then the children are being asked, which type of disease is this? Or which type of animal was that? So they are in Roman numbers, but they are specific for a specific what? A disease or a specific animal or a specific plant or a specific process. So it is that one is classification. Number 2 is characteristics. Characteristic questions now, the learners are supposed to check from these things that have been given, which ones are for a toad and which ones are for a duck, which ones are for malaria and which ones are for typhoid. So these questions, they fall under analysis. They are a bit high level. So the learner is supposed to analyze. The learner is supposed to synthesize. What are these? With these Roman numbers, what are they? Then we look at we look at the procedure. The procedure is just specific. The learner is supposed to know which one is the first. For KCP, it's very, very easy. Once you have known the first, the second, and the last, you'll be able to answer the questions. There is one that they were tested in the procedure of making a beam balance. I think in 2006. There was also procedure of doing the experiment of capillarity, 2011. They were also tested on the procedure on how to the process of giving birth. That is 2013. Then 20 there's a year they tested, 2010, I think so, how to make a single fixed pulley. So you find the learner just need to know the first, the second, and the last for KCP. It is very, very easy. The first one, they must start with the first one, but the second one will not follow each other. Again, here the children are not supposed to cram. KCP normally don't test this question, which one is the third, which one is the fourth, which one is the fifth. They don't test that. Because if they test that, let the learner use the choices. Learners are not supposed to cram. Let them just use the choices A, B, C, D. Which one is the first among those four choices? Which one is the second among those four choices? Which one is the third? Like that, like that. So prepare them well for the procedure, for the classification, for the characteristics, like that as they answer them, and tell them those questions they need to analyze, they need also to synthesize. There's also this type of questions in our papers, and this is the group or pair questions. Learners are supposed to group which one of the following group consists of field pest only, which one of the following group consists of what, which one of the following pairs consist of what. Those ones fall under comprehension and analysis. They are supposed to analyze. What they are supposed to comprehend, what are these people talking about? And we normally say one worm destroy the other. So tell them, if you are asked which one of the following group or pair, if one of the pair is wrong, then the rest are also wrong. So that's what, again, you tell them. The most tested questions in science, as the teacher has already said there, it is experimental questions. This is the most important part of science. That's why we call it science and technology, because the learners are supposed to do something for them to come up with. Number one, they have to observe. Let them use their eyes. So teach them the skill of observation. Then they're also supposed to know which materials do we use for this experiment. Let the learner know that. But when we are carrying the experiment of capillarity, which ones are the materials are the same, which materials need not to be the same, which materials are we using, so that when they test, the following materials was used to do a specific, to construct a specific instrument, then they know which instrument was it. Was it air thermometer? Was it drainage? Was it windsock? Which one was it? So let them know the materials of each and every activity. And teachers, let us do all the activities that are written in the primary science. Let it be your priority. That don't ignore, don't go to the points. Science is not about points. Don't go to the points, right, for children, point. No, do those activities with them. Do with them, all of them, including work to do. Like in class 8, there is after a topic, there is work to do. But, and then after work to do, there are emerging issues. They will be tested in the examination. So let them know the materials, let them know observation, let them know the conclusion. What is the conclusion? And let them know which questions which answers am I supposed to give according to which question? Because if the question is asking about material, how will it be framed? If the question is asking about observation, how will it be framed? The same applies to conclusion. Children will always see a diagram, they go air, exact pressure. And they are not being asked to conclude, they have been asked, what will you see? What will you observe? Observation is what we see with our eyes. And therefore, and lastly, let them also know how to carry out this experiment. Guide them. Anytime you're doing the activity, tell them this is how we do it. This is how the number one is this, number two is this, because they might get a question, ask them what is the procedure in order of carrying out an experiment that they did when they were learning. Make sure, so you tell them that. So these questions fall under evaluation, they fall under application, and even sometimes they also fall under analysis. So make sure you guide them well. The normal diagrams. The normal diagram questions are these questions, the questions that are coming from the flower. These are the questions that are coming from the female reproductive parts. There is the heart. The normal diagram questions, the seed, as the teacher explained, let them know the parts. Guide the learners that if you meet the seed of bean seed, where is the cotyledon? Where is the embryo? Where is the tester? The same applies to the female reproductive organs, male reproductive organs, the flower, where the parts, which parts. Once they have known the parts, let them also know the function of each and every part of those normal diagrams. What are the functions of the ovary? What are the functions of the uterus? What are the functions of all those ones? Make sure that they know the function under the normal diagrams. Then under the normal diagrams, let them also know how to sketch, because the normal diagram questions can also come as a statement. They can be asked a question. So I normally tell my learners that the question that they receive right now is a revision to the KCP. So what do? If you get a question asking you which part of the heart, I tell them sketch the heart there and show the parts and the function, so that they'll be able to know that next time when they meet the heart, they can be able to answer the questions. You can remember the question that came in 2017. The learners were supposed to identify which one is the what? Which, let me show you that question. 2017, I think I have it here. The question was about the blood vessels. So they were supposed to identify the blood vessels from the diagrams that was there. I think so. It was 2017 or 2016. Yeah, it is here, although this one is a bit dark. So the learners were supposed just to see this diagram here to know where is this question number 48. I don't know if you are seeing it. Let me show you question number 48. Is this one? I hope you're able to see. Tell me in the chat if you're able to see question number 48. Check if you are. I want to see yes in the chat there. If you are able to see, if you are able to see the question number 48, one person please. Or it has not come. You can see it. Very good. So you can see this question here. The learners were required to know the component that stop the bleeding of a wound. First of all, they were supposed to know which one is the plasma, which one is the red blood cells, which one is the white blood cells, which one is the platelet. Once they have known that, then now they can now answer the question that which the component that stop the bleeding of the blood. So they need to label the diagram. After labeling, they can even sketch the function, because the next time they test this question, they can now ask the learners to state the function of the blood vessel marked G. If the learner does not know the blood vessel marked G, they might not be able to answer that question. So that is what you need to know, that normal diagram questions are also tested in exam, but they are testing knowledge, they are testing application, and they are testing analysis. Now, from this type of questions that you have seen, it tells you that the knowledge questions are very, very few. So prepare your learners well to apply what you have taught them. Let them apply in the examination what you have taught them. Guide them very well so that they know that this question, although we have been taught it is this, but it can be applied this way. So teach them that so that they'll be able to score high comes in the examination. Now, these ones are just questions that were the most failed. You can see them there in the chat, but we'll come back to them. What are the methods that a teacher is supposed to use when handling students that are being prepared for Kenya National Examination Council? The proven way of teaching science in primary school and even in secondary school is called a say PDSI mode of teaching. That is the only method that we are allowed to use, so that these learners are supposed to be given activity. As I mean activity-based student learner experiments and improvisation. Plan, do, see, improve. That is PDSI. Plan, so the teacher must plan, the teacher must do, the teacher must see, the teacher must improve. That is the work of the teacher. But those activities, all of them must be learner-centered. So the learner must be the the most important person in teaching is the learner. So it is not us. So let us not cover the syllabus in class by ourselves. It is the learner to cover the syllabus. So how is the learner going to cover the syllabus? You give adequate activities to assist the learner to achieve the set objective. The activity should be learner-centered, not chalk-based. Let them do, let them touch those things. If it is to come up with the experiments, let them come up with them. If it is them, they are supposed to improvise also. You see now improvisation is here. Let the learner not buy. Let them come with those things. If it is, we are making weather instruments, let them come with those materials and make weather instruments in the school. If they are supposed to make the model of breathing system, let them not buy the straws. Let them improvise them. Let them come up with things, pipes for light travel in a straight line. Let them come up with the things that will help them, and then ensure that the learners are doing the experiments, not the teacher. Your work is just to plan. You have already done, and you have already seen and improved, so that when you go to the learners, you go to the learners on with what you have already tested, so that you give them, so that they be able to know you have already eliminated the risk that can happen when you're carrying out the experiment and all the things. So you plan, do, see, and improve, then take the activity to the learners so that they be able to stick, they will get them. This one will stick in their brain forever. But if you come and write on the board that today, these are the procedure of carrying out the capillarity, write on the board, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until Mwisho. Very few learners will master that. But if you tell them, now we are carrying out capillarity, now tell them, what do we do? Ask them questions as you do them. Then they will come up with all those procedures one by one until the end. So make sure that's the main way, that's the main method of teaching science in primary and also in secondary school. Plan, do, see, and improve. Then we have been told about the most failed questions, and the Kenya National Examination Council also sometimes come up with the most failed questions. Sometimes they tell learners now these questions are like in 2020, there are question number 16, question number 41, question number 47 and 49 were the most failed. Let's see them very fast. Let's see those questions only that year, okay? So that you see why did the learners fail those questions. 2020, let me get a paper. 2021 paper. I can just have that most failed question. With me, I normally combine them. I normally combine all those most failed questions. Like this one is the most failed questions from, I hope you are able to see. Let me check if you're able to see those most failed questions. Most failed questions. To confirm to me if you are able to see. Confirm if you are able to see the most failed questions there. Yes, very good. So if you are able to see them, I normally compile, every year I compile the most failed questions. And I wanted to talk about for the 2020. 2020, there was a question asking the learners. Let me go to it. So those ones, all of them are the most failed question. Number 1, 2020 was this one here. Which one of the following is the importance of pre-test counseling for HIV and AIDS? So that's one of the questions that was the most failed. So teachers, give me the answer for number 33. All right, you either A, B, or C in the choices there, so that we see if we got it correctly. That was one of the most failed questions there. We are seeing the answer is dog. Dog is give advice on living positively with the disease. Next person, give dog. Somebody has given dog. We have one person. I've only seen dog. Let me see another one. Dog, bee, cat. So you see now, even as teachers, we also have different answers. And remember, we are the people who are teaching children. And then we also have answers C, D, and B. Those ones are the answers that are coming. But if you realize what the NEC gave as the answer, and I want you to support it, is boy, understand the risk of contracting the disease. And for D, 42% of students in 2020 went for choice D. Why did they go for choice D? Because it was the obvious one for them, according to them. But that is not what NEC wanted. NEC wanted you to know where pre-test counseling. What is pre-test counseling for HIV and AIDS? What is it? That's the first thing that the learner was supposed to know. Then after that, when is the test? When is the pre-test counseling given? When the pre-test counseling is given? So you see, if you don't understand that, then you will give the answer as dog, as the answer, even teachers. So we need to understand that the risk of contracting the disease, first of all, because it is something that is being done before you are given the test. Now, the next one was this. It was a surprise question for this. Question number 34. Can I get the answer there again for question number 34? Can I get that one for question number 34? Let me see if you are able to read question number 34. Give the answer for that. That is for 2020. Those are the most failed question in 2020. Okay, let me read at least 2 or 3. Again, we are giving CAC. So you get that one again. CAC. We only have A and C. Now, this one here, even as teachers, this one got a surprise because we always cram that when we see this, it is always liquid, have indefinite shape. But this time, NEC did not put this. That's why I'm asking you, as you prepare these learners, tell them, please understand the question. I normally tell them, first of all, before you choose a choice, understand what the question requires. Because if you just chose a choice with whatever you want, you will go with the dog. I like this year, very many people went with the dog because they were expecting the answer to have indefinite shape. But this time it was not having indefinite shape. So very many of them went in. The good thing here, the question here is, out of all these choices, the best answer here will only be A, have definite volume. Because the water was put in this, it entered there. It was put here, enter there, put here, enter there, put here, and enter there. So there was no any other choice apart from choice A. So C was not correct. C was not correct. So A was the correct answer. Then the last one, we can look at the question number 35. We will share all these ones to you. Immediately once you have gotten your emails, we share even the most failed questions, all of them. So we cannot go through all of them. Can you get for me the answer for question number 35? That one was also one of the most failed questions. Question number 35, dog. So somebody was, why C is not correct? I will explain that. Why C is not correct. Most of us gone with dog. So I think dog was the correct answer for this because the question was asking which one of the following is a source of heat. So you can realize mirror, moon, firefly. Which one do you think children would have gone chosen the most? It would have been C, and it was 40. Let me read for you how many. It was 41% of 1 million. That is almost 500,000 students went for C because of the word firefly. Firefly. So they just think because of heat, firefly will produce heat. That is not correct. The stars produce heat, and one of the smallest star we know is the sun. So you realize the children will not tell you the star produce heat because you have not told them the reason why the stars that we have at night do not produce heat is because they are very far away from us. They are very, very far, but they produce heat. So that was the correct answer. Thank you very much. Then the last one was this question here. Question number 36. Question number 36. Let me see the answer for question number 36. Question number 36. The answer very fast. That is our last question. Question number 36. Let me see just 3 or 4 people with the correct answer. That is dog. Dog. I think everybody is giving us dog. Let's see. Okay. Which of the following occurs as a result of reflection? Yeah, that's correct. That is seeing object. You can remember that there's a related question that was also tested in 2014. Let me check it here. Formation of a rainbow. This is number 48. Formation of a rainbow can be demonstrated by the following activities except when A, observing the sun through horizontally held transparent biopen casing, placing, then spraying. Can we get this one, the last question? Can you get the answer for number 48? That one was also one of the most failed questions on that year, 2014. So let me get the answer for number 48. The answer for number 48. The answer for number 48. Dog, correct, dog. Dog. Okay. So all of us have, most of us have given dog, others have not given their correct answer. And you will realize that dog was not the answer. Dog was totally not the answer. And the reason why dog was totally not the answer is a teacher, when you go to teach children, don't run to the points. That's why we normally say cover the syllabus first using the primary science. Once you're done with the primary science, now you can now do revision with the other books. But the main one is the primary science because it is the one that is having those definitions. Other books just have points. So this one was testing the learner's knowledge on definition of a rainbow. So if the definition of a rainbow, D cannot be the answer because D will give us a rainbow. But A cannot give us a rainbow. Observing the sun through a horizontally held transparent biopen casing, a rainbow is seen when there is water droplets and the sun is shining at the same time. So this one has nothing to do with that definition. That's why they are marking the choice A as the correct answer. But you can now realize, even as teachers, we were unable to get the correct answer. We are writing D as the correct answer. So please, when we are preparing our learners for the Kenya National Examination Council, let us pay attention to the specific objective. Cover the syllabus, go to class, write today, date, then write for them objective. What are we covering? Let the learner be aware of today we are covering. We want to know the formation of a rainbow. Then another learner will ask you, teacher, what is a rainbow? Then you define a rainbow, then now you do the experiments. Because all of them, these are the activities, and they are in primary science, all of them. Placing a mirror in water to face the sun. That one is in the mirror where we are using the mirror, then we reflect it on a white sheet of paper or white sheet of paper on the wall. That one is there. Then spraying water in the air from the mouth in a bright sunshine. If you are in the village, you did that one. If you're in town, you told the children to come with sprays. Let them improvise. Let them not come with sprays because sprays will not be brought in. KCP will bring spraying water from your mouth in the sun. Did you see a rainbow? Then lastly, placing a biopen casing on water in a glass container. This come from the experiment where the learners were told to put water in a glass, then put a white sheet down there, then observe. Then you'll see a rainbow. So if they did that experiment, they will still see the rainbow when they place a biopen casing on water, because we are talking about apparent what? Apparent death in a rainbow. Sometimes I saw in the question there, somebody was asking about the aspect and the property. The aspect of light is what is under the properties of light. So if you are talking about a rainbow is under the property of light called refraction. If you are talking about seeing, we are talking about a reflection. If you are talking about shadow, we are talking about light traveling in a straight line. That we are talking about opaque, transparent, translucent. When we are talking about the mirage, we are talking about the property of light there is refraction. So make sure you know what the different aspect is under the property, and the properties are only three. That is light traveling in a straight line, reflection of light, and then refraction of light. So that is what we wanted to bring to the remaining failed questions. Those ones you can do because of time. You can do them. They are there. The 2019, we have 23, 40, 47. We have question number of 2018, we have 4, 29, 47. Then 2017, you can write those questions. You go and try them. We will also send to you the most failed question. We have already compiled them. The most failed question, all of them. So you'll be able to see them. So thank you very much for listening to us. I'll go back to you so that you guide us on the next. George, we are done. George.
Thank you so much, Bwana Polycarp, for the wonderful presentation. And I will come. So then I will go. Thank you so much, Bwana Polycarp. I think most of the areas you've handled well, and I think we are moving in the right direction. Now, because of time, I think we may just want to take one or two questions. Then I think we'll just wind up. Polycarp, there were these questions that were on the chat. There were quite a number, but I just want you to address maybe a few of them. One of them being Mr. Francis Mutuku was asking, differentiate between the properties of light and aspects of light.
Yeah, that one we have answered.
Sorry?
That one you have already answered, eh? Okay,
the other one was, how does density affect floating and sinking?
Okay, so I think that one also I answered the person in the chat, but what you need to know is that in science, we don't talk about cramming. So don't ask, in fact, that question was tested once in 2008. Which one of the following factors affect sinking and floating? Was tested once. The reason why it was tested once is because the main objective there was not for the children to cram. The main objective was the children to investigate the factors that affect sinking and floating. So if the children investigated, the factors in the syllabus are only three. So the three factors are shape, the three factors are materials, and size. So the children are supposed to investigate the three things: shape, size, and material. Then once they have investigated, they will come up with a conclusion that size does not affect sinking and floating. So anything to do with weight, density, mass, whatever, those are just distractors in the choices. But the question, which one of the following does not affect sinking and floating? The answer is size. Thank you. I hope I've answered you, George. George.
Come on.
George, okay, thank you. George? Okay, George is not, I think I've answered that question. Let me pick another question in the chat there. Why is choice C in question number 34 correct, not correct? Now, question number 34 was talking about which one of the following is the main reason why tanks are placed on top of buildings. That is application question. So if it is an application question, teachers, you don't just go for the obvious answer. The question is asking, even 2009, I can remember 2009, they asked the students, why is the tap placed at the bottom of the tank? Now they ask in 2020 again, But now they're asking them, why is the tank placed on top of a building? That one is to increase the water pressure so that the water can, because that's why you see we pump water from the ground. It goes up first. It's when it comes back to our houses from the top. So it does not come. We just allow water to come from the tank down here. It might not reach the fifth floor or the fourth floor. So the tanks are always placed on top to increase the pressure, because the pressure now, when it's coming down, like the 4 waterfalls, when it's now coming down, it's coming down with a lot of pressure than it will be when the land was just flat. So that's why that question was tested. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Polycarp. Allow me just to invite just one of the participants, Madam Teacher Monica, to ask a question. She's been raising her hands for quite some time. No, I can't find her. Okay, Teacher Monica, kindly unmute and then ask your question. Teacher Monica, please. Less than try Bernard Koech. Bernard Koech, you unmute and then you speak. Bernard Koech. Kennedy Simatwa, you unmute and then you talk. Yes, Simatwa, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I must say that I like the presentation. And my question is this. In the course book of grade 6, class 6 science, they have not written headache as a sign of typhoid. But I realized that there was a year it was said in KCPE, and they brought among the multiple choices headache as a sign of typhoid. So we are confused. We don't know which way to go. Please, may you guide us on that. And then number 2, this topic of human body, class 5, the functions of saliva and the tongue. Is it the saliva rolling the food into small boluses or the tongue rolling the food? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bwana Kennedy. I think, Polycarp, can you answer that? Hello, Polycarp. You are mute. Polycarp, you are muted. So unmute, then we can hear you.
Paul. So I was saying, typhoid is a waterborne disease, and we normally, if you look at the signs and symptoms of typhoid, sometimes you have to be very keen with the main signs, because they share more closely with malaria. So if there is any question, question that has not specified that this is a waterborne disease, then you have to look at the main signs and then come up with that these signs are for the typhoid. Therefore, even if headache is there, then that headache is there has been a main sign of typhoid. So that's where you have to be very keen. But if the question is just specifically saying the following are signs of a waterborne disease, then automatically you rule out what? You rule out malaria, because malaria is a common communicable disease. So when you are just guiding learners, first of all, the primary science is also not 100%, but it's our course book, is the one that we use. But you can realize, bear me witness, Kennedy, that the NEC are always very, very keen. When they realize they have tested a question that is not in the syllabus, they don't mark it. The same, you can check 2016, even this year, 2020, number 39, they did not mark. 2016, they did not mark number 7. Why? Because the answer was supposed to be window, but the choice was reading widow. So widow is not window, according to them. So that question number 7 was not marked. The phases of moon in 2016, number 17, was also not marked. Why? Because there is no objective in the syllabus that requires the learner to know the phases of the moon. So if you go deep, I've checked which year that you are talking about, I've not seen, but they must have been specific. If they ask waterborne disease, maybe they put headache there, but there were main signs for typhoid. So go and check that one correctly. Then your second question, I did not get it. I don't know, it was about what? It was about, I didn't write it, but it was about what? Yeah, class 5, I can't remember it. Sorry for that, but I will remember then I write on the chat, Kennedy.
It was about the saliva and the tongue.
Yeah, saliva's main function of the saliva there is just to moisten the food and produce a digestive juice. So the tongue is the one that rolls the food into boluses, but the saliva is also helping. Why? Because it's moistening that food and making it to become a bolus. So all of them are working the same thing. And the exam, KCP cannot ask such kind of question because it will be confusing the children. If he ask it, there will be no tongue and the saliva in the choices. So that's what you need to know. So you just know the tongue and the saliva help each other, but when it comes to rolling, it is the tongue that rolls the food into boluses. But saliva is just to moisten, and again, is a digestive juice that digests the starch in the mouth. Okay, George?
Thank you so much, Polycarp. Because of time, we may not be able to accept more questions. However, we all agree that there is more need for us to be engaging in such a kind of a fora because we've learned so much. And I think, Polycarp, you can give the teachers your number so that maybe those that may want to engage you beyond this meeting or this training can maybe give you a direct call. But before then, I want to give them the number to the first facilitator, Mr. David. His number is 0721 384 464. I repeat, 0721 384 464. So in case you have any other questions beyond this, you can engage them. But of course, as we had said earlier, we'll be having similar trainings after every examination. So we'll have such kind of meetings time after time. Polycarp's number is already displayed on the screen. You can check the screen. It's written 0720 305 679. Otherwise, I thank you so much.
They SMS me so that I send for them these slides. They wanted these slides. It is easier to send it through the WhatsApp. So let them just say hi in the WhatsApp, then I send it.
Okay. At the same time, the link for tomorrow's meeting. Tomorrow we have a training. I had indicated that Kpsa has lined up a number of trainings which started from Monday. On Monday, we had teachers of mathematics. On Tuesday, we had those of English. Today, we have science. Tomorrow, we'll be having similar trainings for social studies. Of course, not with the same facilitators, but we'll have a similar session from 3 all through to 6. And the link will be shared through the WhatsApp walls. Now, allow me just to appreciate all the participants who have come and have attended this meeting. Of course, it has been almost 3 hours sitting and listening to the presenters. Thank you so much for your patience. Allow me to appreciate just 2 people. There's a lady called Mary Awino. She indicated here that they were all tuned as members of the science department in their school. They were all following the proceedings. We encourage all teachers within a school to follow this. There is also a lady called, there's a teacher called Mr. Pius Shem from Filma Academy Kakamega. He's indicated here that they were following together the class, the whole of the class, the students were following the presentations. And this is very encouraging because, you know, we are doing all this for the benefit of the child. So if the child can get them first, it is even a plus for you as the teacher because they are getting it directly from the facilitators. So your role later on will just be to maybe add a little bit for them to understand the gray areas more and more and more. Otherwise, I have to appreciate everyone for participation. Facilitators, thank you very much for the work well done. Of course, I know time was not enough for you to host everything, but in future, as we engage further and further, I know you'll get more time and more time even to answer the questions. Otherwise, I have to say thank you. Thank you so much. We began with prayers and we'll also close with prayers. So kindly bow down your head as I pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you, Lord Almighty, for this great day that you gave unto us. Thank you, Jehovah, for the session that we've had for today with the science teachers, all the way from 3 up to this particular time. You've given us the diligence, you've given us the grace to sit and listen to the presenters. You've given us the ability even to understand the concepts related to science, oh God. Even as we go through this kind of trainings, Lord, enable us as teachers, Lord, to translate the same even during our teaching lessons in class for the benefit of the child. Jah, we pray that you shall keep us wherever we are, in our families. May your favor and your peace be upon our lives, O Lord, together with them that we stay with, O God. Them that are traveling, we commit them unto your hands. Give them safe journey mercies unto the various destinations. Jehovah God, bless us together for your own glory. Father, we give you honor and glory, and it is in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Let's meet tomorrow for those who also teach social studies at exactly 3 p.m. May God bless you all.